G.I. Joe went swimming in the water, and then a big brown shark came. Anybody know what that's from? All right, so I took my family to see Meg 2: The Trench. I was hoping for dumb fun with a lot of ridiculous action and some spectacular kills. Did it deliver? Jason Statham leads a daring research team on an exploratory dive into the deepest depths of the ocean. When their voyage spirals into chaos, they are forced into a high-stakes battle for survival. All right, so I'm not even going to beat around the bush on this one. It's terrible. And not they know it's terrible and they have fun with it, so it ends up being fun. That's what I was looking forward to. No, We get 2 hours of stupid with a good portion of that being mind-numbingly dull and boring. Now, I don't know if you saw Jurassic World Dominion, where it was supposed to be a movie about dinosaurs and ended up being about bugs. Well, here, this is supposed to be about sharks, but instead, for the first 30 to 45 minutes, it's all about bad people and character and story arcs that are inconsequential and uninteresting. So let's start with the positives about this because it's going to take much less time. There's a portion where we're on the sea floor within the trench, and the creativity and the variety of creatures shown, it's fun and a little unique. Now, while this portion does take about 25 minutes too long, maybe even more than that, there are a couple of tense sequences that help to add stress to the storyline. There are also a handful of ridiculous stunts that made me laugh out loud due to how incredibly stupid they were. Now, most of them come in the later part of the movie, but we do get a couple towards the beginning. But that being said, the trailer, it showed just about every good scene, so there's not much need to see the movie if you've watched the trailer. Now, there are some fun deaths and carnage sequences, but when there can be really cool kills, the camera doesn't show it. And then really, the only deaths that we watch are people getting munched by Megs, and that's a lot, which is then a big improvement over the first movie's lack of body count. Now, there are a few one-liners in here that could be used as a drinking game, but honestly, my mind was lulled into submission from the inanity that I really can't remember what the specific lines were. And then, funny enough, there is a sequence when it's absolutely expected that Statham is going to utter some cheesy one-liner. But instead, he just looks into the camera, and then the scene continues on. Does it subvert expectations? Yeah, but not in a strong way. Now, the last act of the film is much more entertaining and quicker paced than the first two. The action's turned up, we get deaths and chase sequences, but essentially, it arrived way too late in the storytelling to make me all of a sudden get excited and intrigued in what was going on. I really think that's about all there is to say about the positives. Now on to the less than stellar areas. Now first, this thinks it's funny, but it's not. The dialogue is way too obvious and cringy, and there's also inexplicably way too much exposition, as if the plot is just too dense for the audience to understand, so the script calls for characters to spell out the already obvious. There's a point where Cliff Curtis is explaining what is already known to some teammates, but it's supposedly for our benefit. Unless though you were asleep for the 10 minutes preceding that scene, we didn't need the talk. But thanks again, Captain Obvious. Now I mentioned how some of what we see in the trench is unique and creative, but it's also mostly sluggish in pace and uninteresting to watch play out. Now if I'm going to watch people walk around the bottom of the sea depths where danger is lurking everywhere, I'm going to watch underwater instead. At least that one was tense. Now probably my largest grievance with this movie, and really the story, are the villains. Why, you may ask? I mean, aren't the giant prehistoric sharks the villains? No, not for the majority of this. I mean, who we get instead to be the big baddies are the people. And yeah, I mean, I know that people are not only Soylent Green, but they're also the most dangerous game. But in this, the human antagonists, they're underdeveloped, non-threatening, insignificant, worthless, and wastes of time. We did not need their inclusion except for a single MacGuffin of creating the reason that the Megs are attacking. And after that, the human element, they were just an annoyance and distraction that added unnecessary time to the already way too long movie. Now, while continuity errors really shouldn't even be surprising in this, there were at least 2 or 3 that made me chuckle because they were so blatant. Now, in one, something had just undergone a massive explosion, and then in the very next scene, that item is in the background and pretty much fine and intact. And then there's a sequence with Statham riding a jet ski and he's chasing the Megs with spears. Now that number he has doesn't always say consistent or match what he should have, and then magically it does. And then again with Statham, he dives in the ocean to swim to this spot, and he gets there in just minutes. But then we see this aerial shot of him approaching the area, and it's probably a good half to maybe even 3/4 of a mile away from where he started. mean, you can't even see the surrounding land or structures, and the camera's pretty high up in the sky to give us a good top-down perspective. Now, I do know these are minor, especially when there are so many other glaringly poor things going on in the movie, but hey, I am listing negatives, so let's just pile them on. Okay, so I already mentioned the unfunny one-liners and the joke setups that just don't land, but then there are lazy portions where it appears the writers just completely gave up and said, F it, this is what we're going to call things. Now, towards the end of the movie, the final sequences, they play out at a resort called Fun Island. And that's not even creatively bad, it's just lazy bad. Now, so much of the CGI also, it's masked by dark waters and quick-moving underwater sequences so that everything is obscured by the rippling sea and then some bubbles, making it really difficult to discern exactly what it is that we're supposed to be seeing. Now, there are a few creatures that do look pretty decent in the movie, but throughout most of this, you just need to go with it and then expect that the graphics, they're going to be pretty lackluster. Now, at one point, a Meg has to move through a location. There are so many conveniences set up for this to happen that it just becomes silly. Now, at first, it seems like the shark is going to ram something at high speed, but then it just slows down and just kind of nonchalantly swims through. Hey, here I am, passing through. So I didn't have high hopes for this movie. I mean, I didn't expect excellent dialogue or award-winning performances. I wanted to see a fast-paced action movie filled with thrills and kills and some awesome stunts from Jason Statham. While we don't get excellent dialogue or award-winning performances, we also don't get fast-paced action filled with thrills. There are kills, and there are some stupid and fun stunts too, but it takes way too long to accomplish this, leaving me bored to tears through about an hour and 20 minutes of the movie. Now, the graphics are only so-so, mostly using darkness and water effects to mask the poor quality, and the carnage, it doesn't fully engage until the narrative is just about complete. The dialogue is cringy, but it's delivered in ways that make it seem the actors believe they're making something good, and that makes everything sadder. And adding both time and lack of necessity are the human antagonists, interwoven through most of the narrative without contributing anything intriguing or beneficial. This movie is a straight-up snooze fest, and I can't either get my money or my time back from watching this pile of poo. So remember, I watch the crap so that you don't have to. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and eventually a ton of violence. I give Meg 2 The Trench 1 out of 5 couches. So do you have any favorite Jason Statham movies? Let me know what you like to watch in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.